Death Mage Chapter 185 Gods Passing by Each Other. The Colossus woman approached Quattro, kicking aside the fleeing monsters and burning trees at her feet. She was awe-inspiring, beautiful, and there was an aura of divinity around her entire body. If one didn't notice her size and the fact that the ground trembled with each step she took, no, even if they did, they would assume that she was a goddess.
I am the moon giant Diana. I am one of the children of Zerdno, the Colossus god. I presume that you are the holy son of Vita, the new champion, and these are your companions.
The Colossus asked, standing on the edge of the burning forest. Her tone was gentle, but Oniwaka, Kanako Tsuchiya, Doug, Melissa, and Quattro shrank back, feeling overwhelmed. But Vandalyu seemed very delighted at the fact that the Colossus had called him champion instead of demon king.
Yes, I am that champion. My name is Vandalyu the champion.
He shouted, leaning out from Quattro's deck. He had even repeated the word champion for emphasis.
I can hear you even if you talk normally. You don't have to lean out of the boat and scream at me. It's dangerous, so stop that,
said Diana, warning Vandalyu so that he wouldn't fall into the poisonous sea. And then she cleared her throat and began speaking in her previous majestic tone once more.
I have heard news of you from Schneider and his companions, who are loyal disciples of Vita. We welcome you here from the bottom of our hearts.
After Kanako, Doug and Melissa had returned to Talishheim with Legion. Vandalyu, having equipped Leo and Quattro, was sitting in Diana's cupped palms with his companions.
It would take months if I were to match your walking pace, after all,
she said. The size of her body was comparable to Gubarzo, the evil god of dark seas. Boulders and trees were crushed beneath her feet, and the nearby monsters fled for their lives. Her steps were unfaltering, no matter what kind of devil's nest environment she was crossing.
It doesn't seem to be a simple matter of distance,
Vandalyu remarked.
Indeed. I heard from that guy and Schneider and his companions that this place that you refer to as the Demon Continent is an assortment of devil's nests with far harsher environments compared to the continents that humans inhabit, and the monsters that roam about here are powerful, of the sort that would normally only appear in dungeons,
said Diana.
This is the edge of the continent, so it is not really the case here, but the deeper reaches of the continent are swarming with rank 10 monsters.
Rank 10 monsters swarming, Aniwaka murmured in awe. Even inside the Boundary Mountain range, rank 10 monsters outside dungeons were rare, the only ones around being monsters like the hurricane dragons that inhabited the skies above the mountain range itself. Diana gave a bitter smile at her reaction.
The main cause of this is Ravo Vifard, the evil god of release. That evil god stimulated the monsters to increase their ranks, using them in power struggles against the other evil gods and to attack us from time to time, and now this continent is more dangerous than any other land,
she said.
But now that he is gone, the number of high-rank monsters is gradually decreasing. Things should calm down in another 100 years, though they were going wild during the solar eclipse that occurred not long ago.
Ravivifard had defeated the other evil gods to take control over the demon continent, but the continent was apparently safer than it was before now that he was gone.
However, this has caused a burden upon you,
Diana continued.
I have heard a rough recollection of events from that foolish elder dragon. I believe that Zontark will have his own words for you, but I shall apologize as well. I am sorry.
As a result of Ravivifard managing to escape the demon continent, Prince Bugitas of the noble Orc nation, that was an empire at the time, had caused a large conflict inside the Boundary Mountain range. Of course, everything was a result of Ravivifard's actions, but it seemed that Diana felt responsibility for the incident as one of the individuals who had allowed him to escape.
Foolish elder dragon,
Vandalyu repeated.
Those words alone are enough. Please do not trouble yourself over it any further. More importantly, what do you mean when you say that the monsters went wild during the solar eclipse?
under the influence of the solar eclipse that Alda caused, to be precise, the eclipse that Alda brought about by loosening his control over the light and life attributes and darkening the sun, a number of seals on evil gods that are remnants of the Demon King's army also loosened.
Diana explained. It seemed that Jubarzo, the evil god of dark seas, was not the only god to have made a return.
The Bon Gaia continent is under Alda's influence, so he should have been cautious even during the solar eclipse, but perhaps some remained out of his sight, or perhaps it was a deliberate action by him. The seals placed by the gods have weakened.
Diana continued.
The divine authorities of multiple great gods were used when they sealed the evil gods away during the battle against the Demon King, however. This is a result of Alda being the only god who governs the world now.
It seemed that the seals had been loosened, due to Alda loosening his control over the world, in order to cause the solar eclipse. Of course, it wasn't as if the seals on every evil god had become undone. However, on the demon continent and in the seas surrounding it, there were seals that the demon king Gujarani's had left intact, thinking that he had no use for weaklings that could be defeated and sealed away. Diana and her allies had also placed seals on numerous evil gods that they had defeated themselves, as well as the ones that they had taken the opportunity to seal away while they were weakened from their power struggle against Ravivifard. It seemed that all of these seals being loosened at once had caused large problems.
As a result, we have been very busy. Many of them were not particularly powerful gods, so they did not cause great incidents, but we were supposed to alternate shifts night and day to welcome you. However, Tiamat used all of her strength in sealing an evil god who attempted to escape, so she is now slumbering, and I have ended up making you wait until nightfall.
Said Diana.
I do not know what intentions Alda had in bringing about this solar eclipse, but it has been of great nuisance to us.
It is likely that this was one of Alda's goals.
Gufidgarn said suddenly, having listened to Diana in silence up until this point.
He has been careful to not cause any direct damage to the Bon Gaia continent outside the Boundary Mountain Range, but he has exhausted your strength by forcing you to deal with the evil gods whose seals were undone. Even if it caused some human casualties, Alda and his gods would support his heroes to deal with them, gaining more believers and strengthening his heroes at the same time. It does not seem to have gone as well as he thought, however.
Could it be you, Gufad Garns?
Asked Diana, her eyes opening wide.
Yes. Did you not notice?
It seemed that Diana had only just noticed that the sweet, beautiful elf girl was the vessel that contained Gufidgarn.
If you did not, then I should be happy about it. It means that my vessel is complete enough to fool the eyes of a god.
Gufidgarn said.
It seems that I am able to act in accordance with the will of Zakart, who desired a beautiful elf girl.
No, I did notice that there was something strange that resembles an elf girl, however. I do not mean to be rude in saying this, but many of you are strange in my eyes.
There was the half-noble orc Povina, the ghosts whose ranks had increased in strange ways, Bone Man, who was rational and conscious despite being an undead, and Vandalu, who had a stranger presence and aura than anyone. It seemed that Gufidgarn, who had remained silent until just a few moments ago, had been forgotten among such a strange group.
I am very glad that Gufidgarn is— Wait, what did you mean by the will of Zakart?
Asked Diana, not even trying to hide her bewilderment.
Please don't touch on that topic yet.
Said Vandalu, stopping her.
I'll explain everything when we meet Xantark and the others.
There would be other gods that would be surprised by Gufidgarn's current appearance, so he wanted to save the effort of having to repeat his explanation.
More importantly, are you related in some way to the sun giant Talos? Your name isn't written anywhere in Talasheim's records, so we haven't heard of you.
He wanted to change the topic, but he had also been curious about this ever since he had heard Diana's title of Moon Giant.
Indeed. I am the twin sister of the sun giant Talos.
Diana said, not seeming particularly hesitant to answer Vandalu's question.
The colossi created during the Age of the Gods, including myself, were the children of the colossus god Zerno, but Talos and I were born at the same time. Zerno took the warmth of the sun and the light of the moon and gave each of us twins one each.
she said, giving a tender smile towards Princess Levia, who was floating behind Vandalue.
Thus, I am the aunt of all Titans. Talos and I fought together during the battle that occurred 100,000 years ago, but you have gone through many hardships because we lack strength.
Princess Levia, who was now a Satan Prometheus ghost after her latest rank increase, hastily materialized into a visible form and lowered her black-red flame-covered head.
And no, we are not worthy of such words. But I am sure that everyone would be delighted if you graced Talasheim with your presence one day.
Yes, I certainly will one day. It seems that by becoming a ghost, you have become closer to my brother. Blessings upon you and your brethren,
said Diana, smiling deeply at the flames that enveloped Princess Levia like robes. The place that Diana brought Vandalue and his companions appeared at first glance to be a vast, sinister land of death, filled with lava and boulders. But somehow, it seemed that the air did not contain any toxic volcanic gases. It was hot, of course, but not unbearably so. With a few demon fires, which were cold flames that absorbed heat energy, it would become a reasonable temperature. Just as Vandalue was wondering about this environment, Gufidgarn voiced her thoughts.
It is likely that the surrounding lava is not the result of volcanic activity, but the result of Xantark's presence.
She said,
I see, so this is the power of a great god. But that doesn't seem to be all.
Said Vandalue.
Indeed. This place has partially turned into Xantark's divine realm. I heard 100,000 years ago that by fusing with evil gods, he has become a different being, and his divine realm can no longer return to what it was. Now he is likely turning a part of the demon continent into his divine realm, though it seems that he is making a reckless effort to do so.
Gufidgarn murmured. She suspected that this was something that Xantark could only do because the entire continent was as contaminated with mana as the inside of a dungeon, and because 2/3 of his being were now evil.
This is a great historic discovery,
said Luciliano, his entire body drenched with sweat as he furiously scribbled notes as if his life depended on it. Even he was so overwhelmed with nervousness that he couldn't stop sweating, because there were so many great beings gathered here. The Mountain Queen Elder Dragon God Tiamat, who had the appearance of an enormous female draconid. The Bird Beast King Lawfaz, who had the appearance of an enormous two-headed bird. The ancestors of the Kijin and Majin races. The Kijin ancestor was a being so huge that he might be mistaken for a colossus, wearing a fur cloak and a mask. In contrast, the Majin ancestor was about as small as a human, but emanated a tremendous presence. There were also numerous other gods and their followers gathered here. There were two that stood out among them. One was a man who looked like an adventurer, emitting a pale glow from his entire body. The other a male god who looked like he had fused with a rocky mountain, sitting with a grave look on his face, his eyes firmly shut. There was also another that stood out in another way. For some reason, there was a being with the appearance of a slightly larger than normal wyvern next to the man with an adventurer's appearance, its entire body trembling. What could that be? Vandalue wondered. All of his companions were curious about this out-of-place wyvern as well. However, they didn't get a chance to express their curiosity. The male god, whose right body half was covered in a black, iron sand-like substance, and whose left body half was enshrouded by a black mist, Xantark, the war god of fire and destruction, suddenly opened his eyes and widened his jaws, revealing rows of sharp teeth. He let out a ferocious, storm-like roar that contained a physical pressure, causing even Vandalue to stiffen. However, even with the force of the roar bearing down of them, nobody could discern its meaning.
My apologies,
said Luciliano, immediately stopping his note-taking and instinctively falling prostrate.
Boss, maybe you should have kneeled or prayed, or offered him something first.
Kimberly shouted in panic.
Van, why is he angry at you?
Asked Povina, bewildered.
Bakken, what shall we do?
Asked Sam.
Should we offer him the fatty cuts of Jubarzo's meat?
Suggested Saria.
Everyone calm down. Saria, put the fatty meat cuts away, you're shocking everyone.
said Vandalyu, hastily trying to calm his companions down. However, even he was confused.
Is he even angry at us to begin with?
He wondered. He was accustomed to seeing evil gods with bizarre forms, and he did not feel any anger from Xantark. However, the others could only tell that Xantark was frowning and that his voice was loud. But they didn't know the meaning of his roar. The Magian ancestor scowled and slapped the shoulder of the nervous, stiff-faced man who looked like an adventurer.
All right. The old man Xantark says, "Welcome, holy son of Vita who carries the fragments of the champion's souls,"
said the man, the heroic god Farmoun. It seemed that he was able to understand the meaning of Xantark's roar. Xantark roared once more, but this time, Farmon interpreted it for Vandalyu and his companions right away. Apparently, ever since fusing with the evil god of dark dust and the evil god of evil darkness, Xantark had become unable to communicate his thoughts like before, so he needed other gods to interpret for him.
I welcome you. With that said, there's nothing much to be done in this land that has nothing but rocks and lava.
Suddenly, Farmon's interpreting was interrupted by the Magian ancestor hitting him.
Ouch, those are Xantark's words, not mine.
Farmon protested.
I know that, but I am hearing the words from your mouth, so my hand moved instinctively in that direction. I am sorry for interrupting the conversation, Oyajidono, honored guests,
said the Magian ancestor, apologizing to everyone except Farmon. With that, he took 2 steps back, behind the place where he had been originally standing. The other gods looked disapprovingly at the Magian ancestor, but they did not seem to feel sorry for Farmon at all. This exchange made it clear that Farmon had not made amends with them. They had simply called a truce. Of course, considering the discord between them that had continued ever since the battle between Vita's faction and Alda's forces, perhaps even a truce was more than reasonable. To the Magian ancestor and the rest of the gods, Farmon was an enemy who had been among those who had wounded their parents and siblings, and killed many of their children. He had mostly fought against Xantark during that battle, so the ones he had wounded and defeated directly were few compared to the other 2 battle-oriented champions. However, how would things have turned out if he had remained an ally of Xantark, the god who had chosen him, or even simply not participated in the battle? With thoughts like these, it was likely impossible to forget the chains of the past. Vandalyu felt like he noticed a bitter smile on Xantark's face as he looked at the other gods, but perhaps he was just imagining things. Xantark began roaring once more.
I wish to face Alda in battle once more alongside you, but unfortunately, we will be unable to move from this place for some time. There are the weakened seals on some of the Demon King's remnants due to the recent solar eclipse, but there is also the fact that if we abandon the Demon Continent, monsters will continue multiplying, and the Devil's Nest will spread endlessly, eventually crossing the ocean and reaching Bon Gaia in as little as just a few years,
said Farmon, interpreting.
Xantark, slow down your pace a little. If you don't put a little less meaning in each of your words, I can't keep up.
It seemed that each of Xantark's roars contained a densely compressed amount of information, and Farmon was struggling to interpret them.
I understand the situation. To speak of the situation on our end, I have destroyed Alda's divine authority that was used to seal Vita,
said Vandalyu. At his words, the gods began making a commotion.
Mother has been revived. No, she has regained her consciousness.
I had missed her and wanted to meet her again one day. It will really come true.
The
Magian and Kijin ancestors, who were Vita's own children, trembled in astonishment and joy. Tiamat's tail twirled about to express her happiness, and Laphaz spread his wings and let out a squawk. Xantark looked up at the sky and let out, not a roar but happy laughter.
You have brought news that is more joyful than we could have imagined. I thank you for freeing my sister, the mother of all of our children. I can't understand you either if you talk that fast,
said Farmon.
I don't know if it's of any value to you, but please accept my heartfelt gratitude as well,
he said to Vandalyu, his shoulders loosening in relief as he lowered his head.
I am humbled by your gratitude,
said Vandalyu, lowering his head politely as well. Farmon raised his head again, an expression of surprise on his face. But Vandalyu was really curious about that wyvern. The other gods were overjoyed, but the wyvern was not.
This is it, it's over.
The wyvern murmured to itself, tears flowing from its dead-looking eyes. It could speak, so perhaps it was a superior race of wyvern. Could it be that it's not a wyvern? It looks a bit like Shashuja, Vandalyu thought. The great marshlands south of Talishheim were currently inhabited by lizard men, the Armans that were a mutant variant of lizard men and the Scylla. Looking at the wyvern, Vandalyu was reminded of Shashuja, the lizard men's representative, whose crying, puppy-like eyes had once caused Vandalyu to yield. Come to think of it, I haven't seen him even once this year. I should visit the marshlands to see the Armans' growth and the Capricorn farms, he thought.
Vandalyu Xantark seems to be saying, however, that only further limits our ability to act, unless Alda has come to attack us as he did 100,000 years ago,
said Gufidgarn, taking over for Farmon, who finally seemed to have become unable to keep up with the interpreting.
By limiting their ability to act, does he mean that it would be problematic if Alda detects their actions and things gradually develop into a war between gods?
Vandalyu asked.
It can be assumed that this is part of it, but I believe that this is a matter of the world's maintenance. Even if we could defeat Alda and his allies, the world would be devastated and could even be destroyed if we cannot maintain the attributes after the battle,
Gufidgarn said, explaining the god's situation without needing to interpret Xantark's words. The world of Lambda's existence was maintained by the gods governing the attributes of earth, water, fire, wind, time, space, life, and light. If problems arose with governing these attributes, the world would come undone and eventually be destroyed if the attributes were to remain unmanaged for too long. Alda, the god of law and fate, currently ruled over the life attribute that had once been governed by Vita, as well as the light attribute. The heroic god Ninodode was governing the wind attribute in place of Shizardion, the god of wind and art, who had been destroyed by the demon king. The heroic god Farmon Gold was governing the fire attribute in place of Xantark, with the support of Xantark's subordinate gods. As for the other four attributes, time and space were managed by the subordinate gods left behind by Ricklint and Zeruworn. However, the earth and water attributes were being maintained by the subordinate gods who had survived the war against the Demon King, as well as those whom Alda had turned into gods after the war. Even excluding the fire attribute that was being governed by Farmon, 5 attributes were currently being maintained by gods belonging to Alda's forces.
I see. Even if we were victorious against Alda's forces, with things as they are now, it is uncertain as to whether we would be able to manage to maintain the attributes afterwards,
said Vandalyu, understanding the dilemma that Xantark faced. Vita and Ricklint believed that they could manage by borrowing the power of the evil gods who joined Vita's faction and were not currently governing the attributes, but Xantark suspected that this would not be enough. Among the great gods who had not been destroyed, Vita, Ricklint, and Zeruworn had recovered, but it could not be called a complete recovery. Furthermore, Piria and Botin still had not returned yet. He had considered governing other attributes like Alda was doing now, but he was a significant part of Vita's fighting forces. The enemy was wary of him, and it was possible that he would be forced to expend more of his strength in battle than he expected. There would be no point in winning a harsh battle if the result was the world being ruined and destroyed.
It's a difficult problem, isn't it? Van, can you do something about it?
Asked Povina.
Povina, even I wouldn't be able to do anything about the circumstances of gods,
said Vandalyu.
I can barely manage removing seals and curses and spreading the word as a religious figure for Vita.
My lord, perhaps you could mass-produce undead, order them to worship the gods of Vita's faction, and accelerate the process of gathering followers for them,
suggested Bone Man.
It's something that you've been doing up to this point anyway, and even though it probably won't change the situation too drastically, they say that persistence pays off,
said Rita. The maintenance of the entire world was a problem that was on a scale that would seem enormous to any individual, especially to the people of this world, where efficient methods of communication had not been developed. Vandalu's companions did not understand the circumstances surrounding this issue fully, but they offered suggestions based on what they were now aware of. Vandalu himself was a mortal, so he didn't have an understanding of how difficult it was to govern an attribute, or how many gods and what amount of power was required to do so. He could only vaguely imagine that it wasn't a simple task. However, he had already been told these things by Tristan, the god of the seas, so he had decided to simply try to be aware that gods had their own circumstances. However, Vandalu and his companions were talking amongst themselves like this because Xantark and the other gods had remained silent for a while. Perhaps they were deep in thought. Vandalu had assumed that they were whispering amongst themselves, but that wasn't the case. Could that be you, Gufidgarn? That form I was certain that evil god was male, but was it a goddess? It seemed that they had fallen silent with shock upon realizing that the girl interpreting Xantark's words was actually Gufidgarn. Xantark appeared so surprised that it seemed as if his jaw would fall off.
Diana did not recognize me at first either, but it seems that this vessel is far more complete than I expected. To think that it would fool even the eyes of Xantark,
said Gufidgarn, nodding multiple times in satisfaction.
I'll explain the circumstances around that. There was a bit of a misunderstanding and...
Vandalu began, intending to explain things so that Zakart's intentions would not be misunderstood. But at that moment, the wyvern approached Vandalu with stumbling steps.
Please, I'm begging you.
It said. Saria and Rita reflexively stepped in front of Vandalu. The wyvern squeezed out a cry that sounded so frail that even they hesitated. It kneeled on the ground, which must have been difficult due to its skeletal structure, and lowered its head towards Vandalu.
Please spare me from being devoured. Please spare me from the destruction of my soul.
It said,
I'm not really hungry, and I'm not hurting for food supplies, so I'm not going to eat you.
Said Vandalu.
Actually, who are you?
Luvisfol. I am Luvisfol, the raging evil dragon god.
Of course, this wyvern's identity was that of Luvisfal. After his spirit clone was destroyed by Vandalu, he encountered the storm of tyranny led by Schneider as he tried to escape the Boundary Mountain range, and sealed into this wyvern form after suffering a large beating. His fear and anxiety had reached their limits, leading him to beg Vandalu to not destroy his soul. Schneider's party had left him behind on the demon continent, where he was reprimanded and lectured by Tiamat. Now, Vandalu had come to this place, straight after having defeated Jubarzo and turning his meat into food supplies, with the news that Vita had been revived. Now that Vita's faction was regaining its strength, Luvisfal could only imagine that his soul would be eaten so that his body could be used as food, as his own strength was of little value. Vidurg, the dragon god of 5 sins who had been sealed, and had his lizardman followers stolen from him by Luvisfal, was not an important figure in Vita's faction. However, Vidurg was an ally to Vita, and Luvisfal was a traitor. Even if he were to swear obedience here, he couldn't imagine that he would be allowed to live. That was why he was begging Vandalu to merely be sealed away.
Now that you mention it, well, that's not something for me to decide.
Said Vandalu.
I'll leave that decision to Vidurg and Shashuja.
So it is my fate to be devoured after all. Wait, Vidurg and Shashu.
Luvisfal repeated, his eyes opening wide at the fact that Vandalu was not passing judgment and did not seem to be particularly angry.
Yes, they are the ones you harmed directly. If we want to talk about the past, the ones you betrayed were Marduk, Tiamat, Leowen, and the other gods, right?
However, Vandalu did not feel a particular hatred towards Luvisfal. Luvisfal had not left such a large impression on him. If Daltone hadn't told him that Luvisfal was on the demon continent, he might have forgotten about him completely. And looking at his current weak form, Vandalu felt more pity for him than anger or contempt, though perhaps he might not have felt that way if Luvisfal was in his original form and not the form of a rank 5 wyvern. Even so, if Vidurg and Shashuja, who had suffered directly at Luvisfal's hands, insisted that Vandalu should consume his soul, then he probably would.
That's how it is.
said Vandalyu.
Do you understand? Now then, excuse me, but there is something important that I have to explain.
Zakhart wanted a beautiful girl, but he was so well-mannered.
I might be a little too late.
Vandalyu sighed. A tremendously powerful voice echoed out on an ancient battlefield that was a floor in the dungeon created by Alda, the god of law and fate.
What's wrong? You can't even hope to defeat the new Demon King with skills like that. Or do you intend to give up on your ideal of peace with Vita's races?
Boomed the voice, which belonged to a knight in glowing armor with pure white wings emerging from his back, one of Alda's heroic spirits.
I know we will never give up,
said the blue-flamed sword Heinz, standing in front of his companions, raising his sword. His name, Livia. Rank 11s. Race, Satan Prometheus Ghost. Level 60. Passive skills. Spirit form, level 10. Mental corruption, level 5. Heat manipulation, level 10. Flame nullification. Materialization, level 10, level up. Augmented mana, level 9, level up. Self-enhancement, subordinate, level 10. Self-enhancement, Demon King's Blood, level 7, level up. Self-enhancement, guidance, level 3, new. Strengthened attribute values, creator, level 7, new. Active skills. Housework, level 5. Projectile fire, level 10. Possession, level 5. Silent steps, level 2. Long distance control, level 7, level up. Unarmed fighting technique, level 3, level up. Shield technique, level 3. Surpass limits, level 6, level up. Fear aura, level 8, level up. Fire attribute magic, level 4, new. Unique skills. Japanese letter, black, S divine protection, new, va. Monster explanation, written by Luciliano. Satan Prometheus Ghost. According to Master, Prometheus is a god of legends who taught humans how to use fire, and Satan is the name of a demon king. Perhaps this Princess Levia can be referred to as a divine spirit. She is still only rank 11, so even with the effects of Master's guidance increasing her attribute values, she is unlikely to be worthy of that title, however. She has acquired skills such as self-enhancement, guidance and strengthened attribute values, creator, making her an even more powerful being. With her younger sister Zon Dios guidance, she has become able to utilize fire attribute magic, but as she has not acquired the mana control skill, it is extremely dangerous. She would remain unharmed even if her fire attribute magic were to explode because of her flame nullification skill, but those around her, namely Master, would be caught up in it. Master possesses the magic resistance skill and can block the flames with a barrier, so he has apparently never been burned by her, however. According to the moon giant Diana, Princess Levia has become closer to the sun giant Talos, who was Diana's twin brother. His name, Arbia. Rank 10. Race Chaos Broad Ghost. Level 95. Passive skills. Spirit form, level 10, level up. Mental corruption, level 6. Water attribute nullification. Fluid manipulation, level 1, awakened from liquid manipulation. Materialization, level 9, level up. Augmented mana, level 6, level up. Earth attribute resistance, level 7, level up. Self-enhancement, subordination 1, new. Self-enhancement, Demon King's Blood, level 3, new. Self-enhancement, guidance, level 2, new. Strengthened attribute values, creator, level 2, new. Active skills. Unarmed fighting technique, level 4, level up. Fishing, level 3. Housework, level 3, level up. Dancing, level 5, level up. Projectile fire, level 9, level up. Long distance control, level 5, level up. No attribute magic, level 1. Water attribute magic, level 5, level up. Earth attribute magic, level 2, level up. Mana control, level 4, level up. Unique skills. Maribevil's divine protection. Black black Japanese letter black black S divine protection new and monster explanation written by Luciliano. Chaos broad ghost. Orbia, whose fluids have become even deeper in color, and has leveled up her housework skill by spending time with Princess Levia. The race title sounds even more dangerous than dark, but it currently seems that there has been no real change to her form. With fluid manipulation, the superior version of the liquid manipulation skill, she has become able to more skillfully manipulate the liquid that makes up her own body, as well as the liquid in her surroundings. Of course, moving seas and large rivers is impossible, but she is apparently able to manipulate the direction and force of flash floods. It seems that she has become able to manipulate large masses of liquid more efficiently, with water attribute magic. She is apparently thinking of using fluid manipulation to assist in the planting of rice in the marshlands paddy fields this year. It is unclear as to whether this is a good or wasteful use of her superior skill. Name Kimberly. Rank 10. Race Schwarzblitz Ghost. Level 3. Passive skills. Spirit form level 9 level up. Mental corruption level 3. Wind attribute nullification. Lightning manipulation level 9 level up. Materialization level 7 level up. Intuition level 3. Mana enlargement level 4 level up. Self-enhancement subordination level 5 new. Self-enhancement Demon King's Blood level 1 new. Self-enhancement guidance level 4 new. Strengthened attribute values creator level 4 new. Active skills. Silent steps level 6. Trap level 5. Projectile fire level 7 level up. Possession level 5. Long distance control level 7 level up. Archery level 6 level up. Unique skills. Black 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 Japanese letter S divine protection new Lu. Monster explanation written by Luciliano. Schwarzblitz ghost. An evil-looking ghost enshrouded by black lightning. The cackle he makes when excited certainly makes him seem evil. However, even with the word Schwarz in his race title, Kimberly has not become more black-hearted. His personality has not changed from before his rank increased. However, in terms of his abilities, he has become an even more powerful ghost due to the effects of attribute value strengthening skills and the temporarily named mysterious divine protection. Of course, this is the first time such a monster race has appeared in Lambda. Incidentally, I shall record that for a period after his rank increase, he wanted to confirm with me that he is the only one in the world every time I saw him.